She shattered my heart. I realize now I should have been more alert and wise regarding our relationship. But at my core, I'm still a country boy, even after all these years. I'm Walter Stillman, aspiring to be a tax lawyer. Sounds boring, doesn't it? Yet I didn't even achieve that. Just out of law school with a specialized LLM degree in tax law, the only work I found was with the bankruptcy team at an average-sized law firm in Manhattan. I landed in the smallest and, obviously, the least appealing section of the firm. My place to live was as simple as my job. Rent in New York City is famously expensive. Back then, apartments in Manhattan were too expensive for new lawyers. Even the areas outside Manhattan seemed just as pricey. After a lot of looking, I ended up finding a room in a Brooklyn apartment, sharing it with two other broke people, way down at the end of a subway line. The neighborhood was declining, and my commute to the office felt endless. Basically, I had a modest job and a place to live, and that was about it for my start in the big city out east. But things started looking up soon after I began working. The firm's bankruptcy expert was Eric Erickson, a seasoned professional in his late 60s. He was like a leader in the New York bankruptcy law community, the go-to guy for tough questions. While he had little patience for incompetence, he was a great teacher. Even now, after many years, I owe a lot to Mr. Erickson. He really helped me out. He became my mentor and friend, teaching me skills that would prove invaluable later on. Back then, I didn't realize it, but I had found my calling, and happiness found me almost by chance. But before that, I had to go through heartbreak. Most days, it was just Mr. Erickson and me in the bankruptcy department. Bankruptcy wasn't the most prestigious area at the Portman and Rosencrantz firm during those prosperous times. If we needed assistance, there were two part-time associates available. But they weren't exactly enthusiastic. I was basically getting a top-notch education in a field of law that felt like it was straight out of a Lewis Carroll story. It's a place where everything seems flipped around, where what's right feels wrong, and vice versa. The laws there felt like they belonged in some alternate reality, like Alice's Wonderland on the other side of the mirror. Chuck Thompson was the only classmate from Northwestern University School of Law who had ventured out east like me. We weren't close pals during school, but being from the Midwest, we felt a bond in the chilly atmosphere of the big city. Chuck was grinding away at the Manhattan DA's office and had recently tied the knot with Carol, a true New Yorker. So when they invited me over for dinner at their Manhattan pad, I didn't think much of it. But when I arrived, I was taken aback by the sight of a tall, stunning woman. Eloise Schaffer was the epitome of New York sophistication. She had that effortless elegance that makes you think her beauty is just a part of the city's landscape. It seemed like her perfection was just a natural thing, not the result of endless effort. I had no clue why this gorgeous, green-eyed woman was my dinner date that night. She was way out of my league, a far cry from a regular guy like me, still figuring things out as a junior associate. But apparently, Carol Thompson thought differently and decided to play matchmaker. Turns out spending the evening with Eloise was delightful. She wasn't just a pretty face, she had a vibrant personality too. Outgoing and unreserved, she made for great company over dinner. Afterward, she asked me to escort her home to her Brooklyn apartment. I figured we'd grab a cab, but she insisted on taking the subway. As we rode from Chelsea in Manhattan to Boerum Hill in Brooklyn, she stayed close, chatting and getting to know me. It was quite the confidence boost, having her show genuine interest in getting to know me better. She insisted on thanking me with a kiss when we reached her apartment door. It was a passionate kiss, the kind that could melt iron and make my heart race. With a knowing smile, she acknowledged the effect she had on me, waiting for me to catch on. Can we meet up again? I inquired. After some back and forth, we settled on a time for our official first date. With a less intense kiss goodbye, she bid me goodnight. I practically floated back to my humble abode at the end of Flatbush Avenue, still in disbelief at my good fortune. Fast forward 5 weeks and 4 dates later, I found myself in a pit of despair. Eloise had just informed me she couldn't see me over the weekend due to a prior commitment. After some prying, I learned she'd be spending time with someone else. Rodrigo Ruiz, the state labor commissioner, a tall, handsome guy who seemed like the type Eloise would be interested in. I must have worn my feelings on my sleeve because Mr. Erickson called me into his office. "All right, Walt, what's with the long face? You went from beaming Midwesterner to gloomy Gus," Eric probed. "Sorry, it's personal. Didn't want to burden anyone with my issues." But there was no hiding from Eric. In no time, he had the whole story. He leaned back in his chair, steepled his fingers, and rested his chin on them, contemplating the situation. "As a kid," he started, This town was mainly run by Irish and Jewish folks. They were quite a sight to see. Even though they were several generations into being American, they still had that Irish lilt or dropped a Yiddish word here and there. These were Fordham and Columbia grads who knew how to keep their cultural identity while excelling professionally. They've moved on now. Sometimes I miss the lively touch they brought to politics. Nowadays, it seems like the politicians are mainly black or Hispanic by profession. They don't have the same flair, or at least that's how it seems to me, and they take themselves too seriously. I'm sorry, Mr. Erickson, I'm not following. I hope you never lose that innocence of yours from the Midwest, he sighed. Walter, the guy your girl's involved with, was born Rodney Kaufman. His dad was part of the Kaufman department store fortune, and his mom was a Puerto Rican Jewess, Luisa Ruiz. Rodney's married to Sophie Sloan, from one of the wealthier Sloan families. For political reasons, he's taken on his mom's last name and a Spanish version of his first. Roddy's a professional Hispanic and a full-time politician. Your lady, judging by her, will likely choose you over him for 3 good reasons. First, he's 47, much older than her. Second, he's married to a nice Jewish woman and has 3 kids with her. She's not the type to be jealous, but wouldn't appreciate being replaced. And neither would her wealthy and influential family. And thirdly, there's Roddy and his family. Even though times are progressive, I doubt he wants to upset his own wealthy and politically supportive family by getting involved with a Christian girl. But what if she's dating him? I questioned. Eric gave me a look of impatience, a look he usually reserved for dumb questions. How old is this lady? He asked. She's 29, a woman with a ticking biological clock. And you, a 26-year-old eligible lawyer. I think you've underestimated your value in this situation. Introducing Roddy into the mix was just to give you the push you needed to take things seriously. 4 dates with a 29-year-old single woman in this day and age means it's serious. So either step up or step out, Eric Erickson concluded. I felt reassured and even more confident after talking to my boss. On our next date, I took the initiative and was met with a passionate response. If we're going to go further, I need to know you're serious, she told me. I could say the same, I replied. Are you talking about Roddy? She asked. Yes, and about us, I answered, once again realizing how wise Erickson was. I've been seeing him for quite some time, she admitted. But he's not serious, and I am, I said, understanding Erickson's insight once again. She led me to her bed. I wasn't inexperienced, but she had far more experience and used it all. I barely made it through the night. A week later, I moved into her apartment. It was a spacious place by New York standards with one of those hallways that seemed endless. The proposal was inevitable. She started dropping hints as soon as I settled in. Eloise was 29 years old when we first met, working as a junior executive at Sanderson Financial Management. She quickly climbed the corporate ladder, becoming a VP shortly after we got engaged. I knew she was intelligent and a bit meticulous, but I was amazed by her organizational skills. We planned our wedding in just 6 weeks. In terms of family, Eloise was the oldest of 3 siblings and the only daughter. Her father, a lawyer, was busy with real estate projects in Westchester and Putnam counties, north of New York City. He seemed heavily involved in politics, which explained the grand and well-planned wedding they arranged in a short time. On my side, my family had dwindled down to just one sister, Nancy, who lived on the West Coast near Portland with her girlfriend. Our relationship had soured since she came out as a lesbian, and despite inviting her to the wedding, she declined to attend. Meanwhile, my career had settled into a comfortable routine. I handled smaller cases independently now, as Eric made it clear he was grooming me for bigger things. With bankruptcy proceedings slowing down, Eric emphasized the importance of being prepared for when things picked up, as he was nearing retirement. You've got the skills and personality for this, but there's more to learn beyond just statutes and cases, he would tell me. I've been studying hard, I'd reply. Yeah, but you need some tricks they don't teach you in books. I learned a new trick the Friday before my wedding. Eloise and her mother chose Labor Day for the ceremony for reasons I didn't fully grasp. This early date meant we had the weekend to prepare, and then we could jet off to the Caribbean honeymoon Eloise's parents had arranged for us on Tuesday. Our bags were packed and lined up in the hallway of our apartment, 3 for Eloise and 1 for me. I felt a bit anxious about the wedding, but that morning, I didn't have time to dwell on it. The week before, my soon-to-be wife had gone to her family home in Westchester so we could take some time apart before the wedding. It'll make the honeymoon even better and prevent my pre-wedding nerves from scaring away my hubby, she joked. At 10 o'clock on Friday, the last workday of August, just 3 days before my wedding, I had a hearing in bankruptcy court for a first-day order. These orders set the ground rules for a company's operation during a reorganization under court protection. In my small case, these hearings were informal, usually involving a few attorneys and the judge, mainly the bank's lawyer and me, the debtor's attorney. Judge Marks was usually strict about procedures. That Friday, as I arrived at my office ready to head to court, my secretary informed me that the judge's secretary had arranged a telephone hearing as soon as I got in. I immediately felt nervous. The judge's clerk connected all the parties on the line, and Judge Marks asked, "Okay, Amanda, what's your issue with this order?" Amanda Moskowitz represented the bank. She was sharp and knew the law well. Her argument was precise and targeted the weakest points of my request. She was a skilled attorney, but not particularly attractive. She was nicknamed Sugar, which seemed odd. She was short, under 5 feet, and a bit plump, especially in the lower half, but I always found her face cute. After Amanda finished, I tried to speak, but the judge interrupted me. "Order granted. My clerk will fax it to the parties," he said, and the call ended. Amanda chuckled as I asked her, "What just happened?" "Judge Marks got tickets from my firm yesterday for the last days of the Saratoga races. He needs to be up north of Albany by 1 o'clock. He couldn't stay on the phone with us. Today, he ruled against me for appearance's sake in a matter that doesn't really matter much. But just wait till next time and I'll defeat you," she said, still laughing. "Not exactly the victory I hoped for," I grumbled. "Take whatever you can get," she replied, then paused. "You know, my aunts would say you're a very good young man for a non-Jew." Still chuckling, she hung up. Shortly after, Eric walked in and advised me to take the day off and relax before the wedding. As I left, I couldn't resist asking, "What's a non-Jew?" He grinned. "You and I, someone who isn't Jewish, why do you ask?" "Someone said I was a good young man for a non-Jew." "Oh, a compliment. Someone thinks highly of you." I headed to the apartment, thinking I might head to Westchester early. I wasn't expected until the following day. The wedding rehearsal was scheduled for Saturday night. But why waste time in the city? I had anticipated being busy with my case, which was supposed to take up most of the day, possibly into the evening. We were supposed to be carefully crafting and revising every word of the order to satisfy all parties involved, but that didn't happen. So why not get a head start? I attempted to call Eloise first, but her phone went to voicemail, so I made a spontaneous decision. I dialed her parents' house in Westchester, hoping to speak to someone or leave a message. It turned out to be one of those unexpected events that changes everything. None of the Schaffer family members were at home. The usual maid, Rosita, had taken the day off to attend a fitting for the dress she would wear to the wedding. In her place was her cousin, a woman with limited English whom I'd never spoken to before. She didn't recognize my name. "I'd like to leave a message for Miss Eloise. This is Walter," I repeated for the 3rd time. "She's not here, she's in the city," the cousin replied. "I know she lives in the city, but she's home for the wedding. This is Walter, and I'll be there later today." "She's in the city, staying at a hotel. She'll be here tomorrow for the wedding," Rosita's cousin explained. It took a moment, but my curiosity was piqued. "Which hotel?" "The Plaza," she responded. I'm not typically suspicious, but who wouldn't hesitate after such a conversation? It was nearly noon when I finally caved and dialed the Plaza Hotel. Our reception wasn't planned for the famous Plaza Hotel in New York, but rather in Westchester County. Something fishy was going on, and I hadn't been clued in. There had been a bachelorette party the week before, but maybe the ladies decided to have another pre-wedding bash. I rang the hotel and inquired about Eloise Schaffer. No one was registered under that name. Then, perhaps out of insecurity, I asked, "How about Rodrigo Ruiz?" "No, sorry," replied the young woman. "Try Rodney Kaufman." There was a pause, then she said, "Yes, we have a Mr. and Mrs. Rodney Kaufman in the bridal suite." "Please connect me." There was still a chance it wasn't what it seemed. Kaufman was a fairly common name, I reasoned as the phone rang. When a man answered, I almost hung up, but I had to confirm. "May I speak to Eloise Schaffer, please?" I said. "Elle, it's for you," I heard him say. "Hello," she said. I recognized her voice, but I was speechless. "Hello, is someone there?" "There's no one here," she told him. But there was. "He asked for you." "Hello? It's Walter. Don't bother going to the wedding. I won't be there," I managed to say, finally finding my voice. As I hung up, I heard her call my name before the line went dead. I don't remember much after that. I was in shock, sitting in the apartment as if frozen. In a way, I was. I felt drained of all strength, like everything good in my life had vanished. It was all a sham. The romance, the cohabitation, even our trendy apartment. It was technically our place, but the lease was in her name. My mind was in a fog. I knew I needed to get up, grab my bag from the hallway, and leave. I had nowhere to go, but I had to get out of there. Someone opened the apartment door. It was her. I vaguely wondered how she got here so quickly. Glancing at the clock, I saw it was 2 o'clock. I realized the judge would be at the races. That simple fact had changed everything. "We need to have a conversation, Walter," she said. "Were you there the whole week?" I inquired. She stood in the living room, avoiding eye contact. "It was just us saying goodbye," she explained. "So it never really ended," I accused. "Walter, please, you know I love you," she insisted. "How am I supposed to know that?" I questioned. "I've ended things with him. I won't see him again," she clarified. "Why?" I pressed. "I was with him for 7 years, almost since I moved to the city." "No. Why break it off?" I interrupted. "Because I'm marrying you on Monday," she declared. "No, you're not. Walter, please, let's be rational. Everything is planned. There are over 300 guests coming," she pleaded. I remained silent. There was no use in arguing. I got up and walked past her. "Where are you going? We need to sort this out," she cried. I grabbed my bag and left. She followed, shouting for me to stop. Eventually, she gave up. I wandered aimlessly for a while. I was vaguely headed towards the bridge. As it got dark and I grew tired of walking, I crossed Court Street, not far from the Borough Hall. I stumbled upon a small bar. It was bustling with people on a Friday night, but I managed to find a quiet corner to sit in. "Hey there," she greeted. I glanced up to see Sugar Moskowitz, holding 2 drinks. She set one down in front of me. "I figured you could use this," she remarked. "Thanks," I replied, taking a sip of the strong drink. "It's called a stinger, and as you can tell, I'm not exactly a saint," she joked. "Saint?" She grinned, a pretty smile spreading across her face. "Having drinks in a singles bar on a Friday night. What would I tell my mother about that suitcase?" she explained. As she mentioned the suitcase, I suddenly remembered it. "Oh, well, I had to leave. It's her apartment after all," I explained, taking another gulp of the burning drink. Sugar, or Amanda, didn't pry with questions. Instead, she shared amusing stories about herself and people we both knew from the bankruptcy court. It's a small world, and everyone tends to know each other. She kept my glass full and tried to lift my spirits with laughter. Maybe she already knew I was about to get married soon, but she didn't seem shocked to find me in a Brooklyn bar on the Friday before my wedding with a suitcase. Perhaps she had already been drinking a bit before I got there and didn't grasp the significance of the suitcase and my current situation. The only clear memory I have of that night is Amanda helping me into a car and saying, "It's not far." Later, I had a dream about Eloise. I really needed to use the bathroom. It was urgent, but when I got up from bed, I had no clue where I was. Everything seemed different in the apartment. I felt completely disoriented for a moment until a painful memory rushed back to me. I had left Eloise's place abruptly, so where exactly was I now? My head throbbed and it felt like my brain was wrapped in cotton. I could barely recall anything from the night before. I vaguely remembered going into a bar on Court Street. Someone familiar showed up, but for a moment I couldn't place who it was, until I did. It was Amanda Sugar Moskowitz. What was she doing there, and why was I here in an unfamiliar bed? The room I was in was small, just big enough for the double bed. There wasn't any other furniture. The bed was right up against a window that stretched from the middle of the wall to the ceiling. I was alone in the bed, but it looked like someone else had slept there too. There was no closet, and my clothes were nowhere to be seen. It almost felt like the room was a giant closet with a bed squeezed into it. I noticed a door, but it couldn't open fully because the bed was blocking it. I peeked outside and saw a larger room. On one side, there was a bay window where you could see the sidewalk outside. I realized I was in what they call an English basement in this area. It's a floor partly below ground level and partly above. The windows start just below sidewalk level. The space had been divided into 2 small apartments, and I was in one of them. The main room was split by a counter into a dining area and a kitchen. The bay window served as a cozy nook with 2 small chairs and a window seat for the living room. Not spotting anyone around, I cautiously stepped out, hoping to find a bathroom and my clothes. There was a door across the room, and as I approached it, it swung open, revealing Amanda Moskowitz in a bathrobe, drying her wet hair with a towel. "Ah, you're finally awake," she exclaimed, noticing me. "Took you long enough. Must be almost noon." I quickly covered myself, feeling embarrassed, but she just laughed. "A bit late for modesty now," she teased. I got an eyeful last night. With no other option, I hurried past her, assuming the room she had come from was the bathroom. I guessed right. And after shutting the door, I relieved myself in the small bathroom, which only had a shower stall and no bathtub. Feeling refreshed, I decided to take a quick shower before addressing the issue of my missing clothes and suitcase with Amanda. Despite the cramped space, the hot water felt comforting to my hungover body. However, I couldn't find a towel afterward. I had no choice but to face Amanda. Stepping out of the bathroom, I realized we weren't alone anymore. A young woman with dark hair was seated at the table, grinning at me. Meanwhile, Amanda was in the kitchen area, busy with cups and a coffee pot. "How do you take your coffee?" Amanda asked casually, as if I wasn't standing there without clothes. I quickly ducked back behind the bathroom door and requested, "Could I get my clothes, please, or at least a towel?" Both women chuckled, but Amanda paused to reply, "Towels are in the closet, along with your bag and the clothes you left behind last night." Peeking out from behind the door, I inquired, "And where's the closet?" Still giggling, Amanda gestured toward a set of louvered doors on the far side of the room, near the entrance door to the apartment. "I'd fetch them for you, but I'm a little busy," she quipped, indicating her ongoing coffee-making task. The other woman stayed seated, so I figured I'd better hurry to the closet. I dashed over and swung the doors open. My clothes were right there, my suit and shirt neatly hung up, and my underwear folded on top of my suitcase. I grabbed the suitcase, quickly putting on my shorts and shirt. All the while, I could hear the women giggling behind me. "Oh, by the way, Walter, this is my sister, Sonia Rabinowitz," Amanda mentioned. "Hey there, Mr. Stillman," Sonia greeted. "Hi," I replied as I grabbed a pair of jeans from my case. "Don't feel like you have to get dressed for me," Sonia remarked. "I'm the younger sister, but I'm already married with 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. Naked guys don't faze me." They both laughed as I pulled on my jeans. "Come join us for some coffee," Amanda offered. "And Sonia brought by Alice." "I'll be there in a sec," I replied. "Sonia, you didn't tell me he's so shy," Amanda whispered loudly to her sister. "I didn't know," Sonia responded, also whispering. "We're still figuring each other out." "You're a wild one, Amanda Moskowitz," Sonia chuckled. With my clothes on, I sat down at the table. I really needed that coffee. "I take mine black, no sugar," I stated. Sonia giggled and whispered to her sister, "I guess he got his sugar last night." They both burst into laughter, which didn't help my headache. Amanda gave me a cup of really strong coffee. As I set it down, Sonia's phone rang. She grabbed it from her big leather purse on the floor. "Hey there," Sonia answered, covering the phone and whispering, "It's Aunt Hester." "Yeah, I remembered," she continued quietly. "I'm at Amanda's place right now to remind her, but she's got company, so I haven't had a chance to tell her yet." After a pause, Sonia smirked and said, "Yep, her guest is a guy." Amanda made a cut-it-out gesture, but Sonia kept going. "Yeah, he's kind of cute, but a bit shy." "No, he's not Jewish." "Yeah, I'm sure," Sonia whispered into the phone. "I saw him when he came out of the shower." Now she was laughing like crazy. "She wants to talk to you," Sonia said, handing the phone to Amanda. "Hi, Auntie," Amanda said into Sonia's phone. "No, I'd never forget Dad's birthday. 6 tomorrow night and dinner's at 7. Got it. Oh, he's just a friend. Seriously?" There was a pause while Hester talked. "Nope, that's not going to happen. He's just a work buddy. I'm sure he wouldn't want to be at a family gathering." Amanda gave the phone back to Sonia. Sonia listened as her aunt spoke. "I don't know," Sonia said, then turning to me. "She wants to know your name. What should I tell her?" "Walter," I said. "Walter Stillman." "It's Walter, and I'm pretty sure they spent the night together," Sonia said. "Sonia!" Amanda exclaimed. "Now Aunt Sophie wants to talk to you," she told me, handing over the phone. I took it and held it to my ear. "Hey, Walter, I'm Amanda's Aunt Sophie. My sister Hester and I are throwing a birthday bash for our brother Leonard, who's Amanda and Sonia's dad. We'd love for you to come with our Mandy. Can you make it? It'd mean a lot to the family." "I'm not sure. I wouldn't want to intrude. Mr. Moskowitz might not want me at his party," I replied, politely declining. "I'll let Amanda decide." Then I handed the phone to Amanda. She had a back and forth with her aunts for about 10 minutes while Sonia watched with a mischievous grin. The aunts took turns arguing with their niece over the phone. Eventually, Amanda gave in. "All right, I'll bring him," she agreed, then hung up the phone, exclaiming, "Oh, darn it." "She does that, you know," Sonia commented. "What?" I asked. "She substitutes the word sugar for a stronger word, as if we don't know what she's really saying." With a final chuckle, Sonia got up and said, "Well, it looks like my job here is done. Time to go relieve my husband before my kids drive him crazy. Now alone, Amanda turned to me and said, "You don't have to come. My family can be a bit overwhelming sometimes. I just don't get why your aunts want someone from outside the family at their gathering," I remarked. Amanda let out a brief, almost sad laugh. "Sonia is my younger sister by almost 4 years. I turned 30 on my last birthday. She already has 3 kids. My aunts and the rest of my family think I should be married and pregnant by now." "It sounds like they're pressuring you about starting a family, but they still don't know me, and apparently I'm the wrong religion," I observed. "But you're the right gender," she replied, pausing before continuing. "You see, I used to have a roommate here. It helped with the crazy rent. As you know, junior bankruptcy associates don't earn that much." I nodded, understanding the financial constraints in our line of work. Then it hit me. There was only one bed. "Your roommate was a woman?" "Yeah, but let's not make assumptions," Sugar replied. "I won't pretend to be completely straight, but I usually need a little alcohol for girl-on-girl action. That was a deal breaker for Jessie, my ex-roommate. She wanted a commitment I couldn't give her. So here I am, almost a straight Jewish spinster." I mulled over her words while nibbling on a bialy. It looks like a bagel, but isn't. Finally, I brought up the question that had been nagging me. "Last night Amanda burst into laughter and said, "Yes, we did," though I wasn't too thrilled about being called Eloise. "Sorry," I apologized, feeling my cheeks flush. "Hey, don't act all uptight. We were both a little tipsy," she remarked. "Well, you were pretty drunk." I took a long sip of my coffee, trying to untangle how my life had taken this unexpected turn. Just yesterday morning, I was arguing a case against the woman now sitting across from me in her bathrobe, Amanda Moskowitz, affectionately known as Sugar. Yesterday morning, I was looking forward to marrying Eloise. Now, I had lost Eloise and was discussing last night's intimacy with Amanda. "It's a lot to take in," I confessed. "What is?" "This," I gestured. "Losing Eloise and now being here with you." She didn't laugh, and looking back, I realize it must have been hard for her too. "Listen, you've been through a rough time with Eloise and everything. How about you just relax here today?" she suggested. I considered it for a moment. "I don't think I could handle being alone right now. If it's okay with you, I'll stay." She smiled at that and said, "Great, we'll reaffirm my orientation." And that's exactly what we did. We returned to bed. Amanda was different from Eloise. "Wow, you really like this," I remarked. "It's been a while since I had a boyfriend," she murmured. "But not girlfriends?" I inquired, curious. She propped herself up on her elbows, meeting my gaze, and said, "If you're asking, I've been with more women than men, but it wasn't just about closeness." I lay beside her, a bit lower on the bed. With a swift movement, she straddled me. Peering into my eyes, she declared, "In my experience, nothing beats a man in bed. But for me, a relationship needs more than just closeness. I need someone I can connect with, and most importantly, someone I can respect." "Where do I fit into that?" I inquired. "You're a great partner in bed. Clearly, your fiancé has put in some effort to refine your skills," she remarked. I didn't have a good comeback. It stung a bit, but Eloise had indeed given me pointers on my performance in bed. "But," Amanda went on, "you're here because you're a good person. I've observed you. You try not to hurt anyone, you're honest, and you treat women with respect. Simply put, you're one of the good ones, and those are hard to come by these days." I mused. "That's all fine. But is that how a future lawyer should be described? And it seems like you've been keeping an eye on me." "Watching you? Well, of course I have. I saw you on Court Street and followed you into a bar, didn't I? If Miss Eloise Schaffer loses sight of her prized fiancé, I'm not one to pass up an opportunity." "I'm not some trophy," I insisted. "Are you trying to say she was truly in love with you?" she challenged. "Well, I guess not," I admitted, feeling the weight of the situation. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to upset you." Morning came with a call from her aunts, reminding Amanda about the party that evening and asking if she could come early to help with the preparations. "Aunt Hester wants you to bring Walter to the party," Amanda informed me. "I'm not sure what Sonia told them, but he's not my boyfriend," Amanda clarified to her aunt. "Well, bring him along anyway," Aunt Hester insisted. "He knows he's invited. If he decides to come, he decides," Amanda replied before ending the call. "I guess I'm expected," I remarked with a chuckle. "You don't have to come," Amanda assured me. "What else do I have going on?" I questioned. I wasn't ready to be alone yet. Amanda had distracted me from the mess in my personal life. and I wasn't eager to dwell on what Eloise had done. Okay, but just so you know, you're going to be under the microscope and treated like a potential groom, Amanda warned. Well, in a sense, I am. But let's keep my personal issues private, if you don't mind, I requested. Agreed. Today, that cheating Eloise doesn't exist, at least in public. You'll have to confront her sooner or later, though, Amanda advised. I know, I replied with a sigh. Amanda reached across the table and covered my hands with hers, saying, Walter, you've got to decide whether to go through with the wedding or call it off tomorrow. Either way, it's going to be a major problem. I can't go through with it, not after this, I admitted. Don't rush into anything. There could be serious consequences for your career and life if you bail out now. It could cause a huge scandal, Amanda warned. Why? I don't plan on broadcasting the reason, and I doubt she will either, I reasoned. Oh, my dear innocent Walter, Amanda said, squeezing my hands tightly. Do you really think people didn't know about Commissioner Ruiz and Eloise Schaffer? They've been involved for quite some time. I thought they ended things, I said, feeling deceived. Eloise had been seeing Ruiz all along while we were together. Why? I questioned. If she wanted to keep seeing him, why involve me? He's eyeing the governor's seat next year, she explained. Your marriage to Eloise appeared to end their affair, and you were a desirable catch. A young, respectable, straight professional man, exactly what every woman in New York desires. Cis woman? I inquired. It means a person who identifies with the gender they were born with. In this case, Eloise identifies as a female woman. She needed a partner to silence the rumors about her relationship with an older married politician. She played me for a fool, as you New Yorkers say, I grumbled. Don't feel too sorry for yourself. Maybe she was just saying goodbye like she claimed, she suggested. The week before our wedding? I retorted. Would you prefer she did it after? She countered. I'd rather she didn't do it at all. Actually, I demand it, I asserted. Well, you got even with her by being with me. You could still go to Westchester and marry her, she proposed. That's not happening, I declared. Hey, calm down before you make a rash decision. If you don't show up at the church tomorrow, people will start asking questions, she warned. Let them, I snapped. Okay, hold on a second. A scandal benefits no one. You, my buddy, are a junior associate in the bankruptcy department. Commissioner Ruiz, on the other hand, is a big shot. You might rock his boat, but yours will sink, she cautioned. So, you're saying I'll lose my job? Well, I don't care, I exclaimed. I'm saying you'll ruin your career. No one will hire you, she clarified. I had to stop and think about that, if only for a moment. Amanda, I began, I might just be a simple guy from Iowa, but when Eloise agreed to marry me, she made a promise. She didn't keep her word, so I won't feel obligated to keep mine. Amanda just shook her head. Eventually, she spoke up, saying, Come on, you stubborn Midwesterner, get dressed. I'm bringing you to meet my family. They don't often get to meet a genuine Presbyterian. Well, my family's Lutheran, I corrected. Close enough, she joked, giving me a wink. At 5 that evening, we hailed a yellow cab to head over to the Moskowitz residence on Beverly Road. They insisted on taking a taxi instead of a car service. Uncle Morty used to drive cabs before retiring and now lived off his Social Security with his 2 sisters, Hester and Sophie, in the family home they inherited. Morty had been married once, but his wife left him 30 years ago for a shoe salesman, a topic rarely mentioned. Sophie's husband passed away during the Vietnam War, and Hester never married. Only Amanda's dad, Leonard, had kids. He and his wife, Rebecca, had Amanda and Sonia, and now Sonia and her husband, Gerald, Jerry, Rabinowitz, had 3 grandchildren. The Moskowitz family house stood in a section of Flatbush known as Ditmas or Ditmas Park, according to real estate agents. As we approached the large 2-story house on a spacious lot, there was no park in sight. Unlike Amanda's apartment, which was in a quieter area across from a small park, her aunts and uncle lived by what seemed like a busy street. The house was built in a faux Queen Anne style, not quite a mansion, but certainly larger than the typical single-family home you'd expect to find in New York City. Aunt Hester, a short, sturdy woman with gray hair, greeted us at the door with warm hugs and called Amanda Mandy. Then she turned to me, sizing me up and declaring, Not bad at all, a handsome young man. Oh, I think he's quite attractive, chimed in Aunt Sophie, joining us from inside the house. Sophie, tall and dark-haired, seemed quite different from her sister. After the welcoming exchange, the aunts led us to the kitchen, where they were busy preparing dinner. A tempting cake sat on the counter, and the aroma of roasting meat and sweet vanilla filled the air. Sophie, could you peel some potatoes, dear? Sophie asked Amanda, handing her a peeler and a colander filled with freshly washed potatoes. Hester said, "I'll bring your man to help with the table," as she took my arm and guided me through a swinging door into a dining room lined with wooden paneling. The room stretched long and wide, covered in a thick burgundy carpet over hardwood floors. The dark oak paneling reached halfway up the walls, topped with rose-embossed paper that drew your gaze upward to the intricate lattice ceiling made of mahogany and oak. A modest chandelier hung down from a medallion adorned with carved mahogany flowers. She led me to a row of china cabinets along one wall, where multiple sets of porcelain plates were neatly displayed. Pointing to a specific cabinet, she said, "We'll use these plates today." Then, with a smile, she remarked, "Being Jewish isn't easy. You need all these dishes." I vaguely understood that different sets were for meat and dairy. Hester handed me a stack of plates, and we started setting the grand table covered in a crisp white linen tablecloth. Sneakily, I examined the china and linen, noting their origins. England for the china, and Ireland for the linen. Like the dishes, the people seemed genuine. As we arranged the tableware, Hester engaged me in what seemed like a casual interrogation, subtly prying into my personal history. By the time we finished setting the table, she knew everything about me except for my failed marriage. As we placed the final silver fork, she casually remarked, "It's not painful, you know, just a quick snip. Most babies don't even cry." I didn't quite catch her meaning, but before I could ask, we heard commotion in the hallway. Rebecca Moskowitz, also known as Judge Levine of the U.S. District Court, entered with a commanding presence, announcing, "I'm here, and I brought the birthday boy." She turned out to be Amanda's mother, with Leonard Moskowitz, a professor at New York University, as her father. It was Leonard's birthday celebration to which I had been invited. Hester guided me into the kitchen as she went to greet her brother and sister-in-law. Inside, Amanda had peeled a pot of potatoes and placed them on the stove. She turned to me and suggested, "Let's wait here while my aunts inform the family that you're their guest." "Will I cause any trouble for you?" I inquired, feeling protective of her suddenly. "No, but it might be a bit surprising. I've never brought a man home before." "Mom can be critical, so be ready," she replied. The situation felt awkward, and it only escalated when we were summoned into the living room for introductions to her parents. The living room had a cozy feel, decorated with furnishings from the first half of the 20th century. Despite the comfort, tension lingered in the air. On our way in, Amanda retrieved a small, wrapped box from her light jacket. It was clearly a birthday present. An uneasy silence filled the room as we entered. Amanda's father broke the silence with a smile and a jest. "Is this young man my birthday gift, Mandy?" he quipped. "No, Dad," Amanda replied softly. "I brought you this." She led us over to hand her father the present she had brought, never letting go of my hand. I realized she had been holding it tightly for some time. "Well," her father said, "I was hoping for a son-in-law, but I'm sure I'll like this." He grinned at his daughter as he spoke. Opening the package, he pulled out a baseball, clearly used. His smile broadened as the others looked on, puzzled. Leonard said, "Thank you," then rose to hug his daughter. "It's a game ball signed by the Mets," he exclaimed, then embraced his daughter. I heard him whisper in Amanda's ear, "I'd still prefer a son-in-law." Amanda whispered something back, but I couldn't make out the words. Her father chuckled, but when I glanced at her mother, she was giving me a stern look. Just then, Sonia arrived with her husband and 3 children. The kids rushed into the living room, capturing everyone's attention. "Good, you made it," Sonia said to me, giving a quick hug. Introducing me to her husband, Jerry, a tall, slender man who seemed like he might blow away in the wind, Sonia remarked, "This is Amanda's new beau. At least she got the gender right this time." Jerry shook my hand and added, "Don't mind Sonia. She enjoys teasing her older sister." The living room conversation quickly shifted to the children's recent adventures and the gifts they brought for their grandfather. It was a relief not to be the center of attention, but I felt Amanda's mother watching me closely. Dinner consisted of simple but tasty dishes. The table talk was filled with the happiness of being together. Occasionally, questions came my way. Amanda often jumped in to answer for me, but for personal inquiries, I kept my responses brief or changed the subject. "Yes, my parents passed away. I grew up on a farm in Iowa. I have one sister." I avoided discussing my sister because I wasn't sure how to explain it. However, things got tense over coffee and birthday cake. Judge Levine had been observing, and during a lull while the kids were busy with cake, she asked a pointed question. "Walter, are you the one marrying Eloise Schaffer tomorrow?" I hesitated before answering, but I spoke up before Amanda could interject. "Yes and no," I replied. "I was supposed to marry Eloise, but that's off now." And just to clarify, your daughter had nothing to do with the cancellation. Really? Amanda's mother turned to her daughter. Yes, really, and it's not your concern, Amanda retorted, her frustration evident. I didn't plan on bringing Walter here, but he was invited and kindly agreed to come. I could sense that Amanda's mother wanted to say more, but Leonard Moskowitz spoke up and silenced her. Rebecca, shush, he interrupted his wife, cutting off any response. Looks like the young man found out about Mr. Kaufman. I've been watching Walter all night, and he doesn't seem like someone who'd tolerate that. His words hit his wife hard. The judge suddenly fell silent, not knowing what to say. Glancing around the table, it was evident that while Amanda's parents were aware of the situation, the others weren't. Amanda stepped up. I've admired Walter from a distance for a while. When I found him the other night, lost and hurt, I saw my chance to get closer to him. He's been through a lot with a terrible woman, and yes, Mom, I love him. He's too good not to be loved. As she spoke, Amanda came over and hugged me from behind. Well, good for my niece, Uncle Morty chimed in, ending the conversation about Amanda and me. I can't recall much after that, except for a general sense of contentment at the table. As we rode off in the yellow cab, I turned to Amanda. Did you mean it? I asked. What? She replied, avoiding the question. I wasn't letting it go. When you said you loved me, did you mean it? The taxi seemed to quiet down, and then slowly she lifted her head and said, Yes, I love you. When I first saw you months ago, I was drawn to you. But now it's more than just attraction. I truly love you, Walter Stillman. Half an hour later, I got arrested. Eloise spent the whole Friday night waiting for me at our place. She couldn't figure out where else I'd be. But by Saturday morning, when I still hadn't shown up, she got really worried. With the wedding set for Monday, she panicked, fearing I might not show. So, she called Rodrigo Ruiz, aka Rodney Kaufman, thinking he had more to lose than she did. Ruiz got the cops searching for me right away. It took them a day to track me down. They figured out I'd left a bar with a short brunette woman. Since Amanda and I took a cab to her place, they started questioning all the cabbies in the area. By late Sunday, they found out we got dropped off at Amanda Moskowitz's place. They waited for us there, and as soon as we arrived, they took me away, despite Amanda's protests. They locked me up in a dingy room at midnight, chained to a table. Nobody told me what I was charged with. Then, Eloise walked in, looking stunning as ever. Did you do this? I asked, my voice sharp with anger and frustration. She seemed surprised, standing on the other side of the table. There were chairs on her side, but she didn't sit. Walter, please understand. I was worried sick when you didn't come home, she explained. So you had me arrested. But for what? A tall, good-looking man said I wasn't under arrest but in protective custody before a potential mental health commitment. He looked even better in person than in his pictures, though visibly older than me. Despite his efforts to appear youthful, his middle age was evident. I assume you're Rodney Kaufman, I spat out, trying to convey my disdain. It's Rodrigo Ruiz, but you can call me Rod. I hope we can be friends, he replied, trying to be friendly. It's Mr. Stillman to you, and I have no interest in being friends, I retorted firmly. That's unfortunate. I think you could use a friend in your current situation, he remarked. I raised my hands slightly, feeling the chains pull against the table. You can't keep me here for long, I asserted, trying to sound confident. Hopefully long enough for you to hear Eloise out, he replied calmly. Eloise, who had been silent until then, finally spoke up. Walter, you're misunderstanding. Rod and I are just friends. Whatever we had is over. If you had stayed on Friday, I would have explained. But I found you in his hotel room, I interjected. Regardless, you have a wedding to attend later today, and it's best for everyone if you keep that commitment, Rod insisted. I refuse to marry this woman, I declared, using harsh language. Eloise let out a cry while Rod maintained his composure. Let's watch our language, please. Let's stay calm, he urged. Should I call her a prostitute instead? Because that's what she is, I snapped, hoping to provoke a reaction. Though I could see I had rattled Rod slightly, he continued to smile. Eloise turned away, tears streaming down her face. That kind of attitude will stir up a lot of trouble. You're acting really foolish, young man. Eloise is a beautiful woman who would make a great wife. If you don't marry her, it'll cause a huge scandal. Reporters are expected at the wedding, you know. It's a big deal in society. Eloise's reputation will be ruined, and mine too, because people love gossip, especially juicy ones like this, he warned. I hear you're doing well at a top firm, but if you don't marry Miss Schaffer today, your career will tank, and finding a new job won't be easy, he threatened. I couldn't help but smile. I wouldn't marry her even for a top position at the firm, let alone stay as a junior in the bankruptcy department. I told you he'd be stubborn, Eloise added, still turned away and crying. Rod sighed and turned to me. Okay, Mr. Stillman, what do you want to marry Eloise? Trust me, your money isn't enough, I replied. It doesn't have to be forever. Just a year or two and then a quiet divorce, he proposed. But won't people wonder why? I challenged. He didn't flinch, indicating he had other plans up his sleeve. I'll handle the situation when the time comes. What's your price for a 2-year marriage? How far along is she? I asked, finally understanding. Eloise turned to me sharply. It could be yours, you know, she hissed. Yeah, but I'll wait for the DNA test, I retorted. Rodney pressed on. How much? Not a chance, I nearly spat back at him. Before the conversation could continue, a stout, balding man in his 60s entered, followed by 2 uniformed officers. Hello, Rod, Miss Schaffer, and you must be Walter Stillman, he greeted, placing a hand on my shoulder. I'm your attorney, Cy Lebowitz, and here, he said, handing a paper to Rodney, is a copy of the habeas corpus writ I just filed at the front desk. Up late, aren't you, Cy? Rod remarked. You know how it goes. Things have been a bit quiet with work lately. Eloise has been looking out for her fiancé's well-being. If you keep this up, we'll have to go for a forced commitment, threatened Rodney. I don't see how you can do that, considering the writ was filed by his sister, who's his closest living relative. Did you disturb her sleep, Cy? Nope. It's still early over on the West Coast. Commissioner Rodrigo Ruiz, also known as Rodney Kaufman, just shrugged. He knew he was defeated. Cy bailed me out, and Amanda was there waiting for me. Her mother, who's a judge, woke Cy up, and the judge who signed the release order to get me out. That was the last time I saw Eloise. Turns out there was never a baby. I'm not exactly sure why. I know Eloise was feeling the pressure of time ticking away, and she probably wanted his child instead of mine. But I'm pretty sure when faced with the choice between a scandal that would harm her lover and a termination, she chose the latter. As for Commissioner and potential Governor Rodrigo Ruiz's threat to ruin my career, I have no doubt he tried his best, but fate had other plans. I had a vacation planned from September 2nd to 14, 2008, for a honeymoon that never happened. When I returned to work on September 15th, Lehman Brothers had filed for bankruptcy, and everything changed in the financial world. Eric Erickson became the most important partner in the firm, and I became the most important associate. It took 6 months of working 90-hour weeks for both Amanda and me before we could finally tie the knot. We had to make time then because Amanda was pregnant, and it was obvious. Amanda didn't think about using any precautions because she hadn't been with a man for a while before that first weekend we spent together. Our oldest child is a girl, and we had 3 more after her. But 4 was enough. Amanda became a judge, following in her mother's footsteps, and I started my own firm. When people ask me how I managed to have a successful career and marriage, I always tell them it's all thanks to a day at the racetrack, a broken heart, and a girl named Sugar.